Welcome to Hope for Recovery, a 12-step workshop, sponsored by the Saturday Serenity Meeting of Eating Disorders Anonymous, which is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they might solve their common problems and help others to recover from their eating disorders. Information about EDA can be found at 4eda.org, the number 4eda.org. Handouts for all sessions of this workshop can be found at edahopeforrecovery.com. And now, here's today's workshop.
Welcome, everyone, to week 10 of the 14-week Hope for Recovery workshop. Today, we're covering step 6. My name is Regina. I live in San Diego, and I am a grateful, recovered member of Eating Disorders Anonymous. I serve as chairperson of the Hope for Recovery Workshop Committee. Please join me for a moment of silence. Remember to turn your camera off if you're moving about or doing anything distracting. This workshop is being recorded to create an audio version, so if you choose to share, your voice may be heard on the recording. The handouts for this session and all the sessions are available at edahopeforrecovery.com. I have the chat feature configured so that you can ask a question in the chat if you're shy to ask in person. As a reminder, this workshop is not intended to replace the experience of working the steps with an EDA sponsor, so we do suggest that you continue your efforts to find a sponsor. I want to remind everyone what a rich resource the EDA website is. The EDA Big Book is there. There's audio recordings of the entire book. There's recordings of a previous workshop, lots of brochures, including a brochure for professionals that you might want to consider printing out and giving to professionals in your life. I've given some thought to a question that was raised, I believe, last week about the role of being the person listening to a 4-step. In addition to deep listening, the key to being helpful to someone during a 5th step is to help the person understand if they're missing something important, such as not seeing their own issues. It can also be very helpful to help them see patterns. I've found a little bit of sharing of my own 4-step writing can be helpful, but this needs to be measured, so the focus is on the person, not on myself. And it can be useful to discuss what level of feedback is wanted or not wanted. Personally, if I'm listening to someone I sponsor, I assume I have implied permission to give feedback, and they usually find it's well received. For many reasons, it is useful to know the person fairly well, as a sponsor might know someone if they've worked the previous steps with them. All right, now that I got that said, I'm going to have the pleasure of introducing Donna, who is our leader today. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, Regina. Hello, my name is Donna. I live near Atlanta, Georgia, and I am a grateful member of Eating Disorders Anonymous. Last week, we covered step 5, where the 4th step inventory writing is shared with a trusted person, typically one sponsor. The sharing of our written inventory is a very different experience for each person. And for those who have done step 5 more than once, it can be a very different experience each time. Before we begin our study of step 6, let us take a moment to reflect on the 5th step experience by reading the first paragraph on page 168 of our big book, Eating Disorders Anonymous. I have asked Ed to read this for us.
Hi, I'm Ed, recovering from an eating disorder in St. Augustine, Florida. Next week, we'll be in north of Nashville, Tennessee. Reflections on the step 5 experience. After taking step 5, we are bound to experience shifts in our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions of the world. This could manifest as a new sense of connectedness to humanity or increased confidence in our ability to be objective about our old ways of thinking and behaving. We may feel delighted, happy with our place in a world where we can engage in ways that feel exciting and new. On the other hand, we might think our changes have not been deep enough, forcing us to question ourselves and our ability to continue. Perhaps we are disappointed because we secretly hope that after our fifth step, we could go about in perfect peace and ease without having negative emotions ever again. Whatever we are feeling, we honor it, trusting that we are not alone in our experience. From the EDA Big Book, page 168.
Thank you, Ed. Now we're going to move on to step 6. I will read the long version from Appendix A, page 483 in the EDA Big Book. Step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. We began to accept ourselves as we really were and take responsibility for our actions. We realized we couldn't fix ourselves. We had to be patient and focus on our efforts instead of results. We realized that the results were not ours to control. Everyone, please get your EDA Big Book and turn to page 168. We're going to look at 5 additional paragraphs in step 6. Volunteers, after you read, you may share for 1 to 2 minutes or feel free to pass. So everybody get your big book, page 168. And we will begin with Laura W. Would you please read page 168, the last paragraph, which begins in step 6.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm recovering from an eating disorder in Chesapeake, Virginia. In step 6, we again consider what happened every time we put ourselves and our emotional states in a position of central importance in our lives. Somewhat ironically, we were actually weakened and diminished, since putting ourselves at the center meant we lost sight of the broader context in which our lives made sense. It also meant we were vulnerable to crippling levels of resentment, fear, self-pity, shame, guilt, confusion, frustration, and despair. These defects of character, all stemming from self-centeredness, were truly paralyzing, keeping us in a state of constant pain and misery. Focused solely on our own suffering, we were unable to be of much service to others. And I pass.
Thank you, Laura. Gail, would you read, please, from page 169, the first full paragraph, which begins, when we took step 3.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Gail from Williamsburg, Virginia, not too far from Chesapeake, Laura. And I am in recovery from an eating disorder. When we took step 3, we agreed to turn our will and our lives, our thoughts and actions over to God, a higher power, or service to the greater good. But our self-centered pain and fear held us back. Many of our defects were still with us. This felt unsettling, even depressing for most of us. What were we to do about these issues? That is what steps 6 and 7 are all about. In step 6, we consider whether we are entirely willing to face and be rid of everything that has been holding us back. Thank you, and I'll pass.
Thank you, Gail. Judy, would you please read on page 169, the second full paragraph, which begins at this point?
Hi, my name's Judy, desire to recover from an eating disorder. At this point, although still afraid of change, we were pretty thoroughly fed up with our old patterns of thinking that kept us in a state of emotional turmoil. We could see how they hurt us, hurt those who loved us, prevented us from doing the right things, and kept us stuck doing the wrong things. We recalled how desperately miserable we were when we defied our natural instinct for self-preservation by acting out over and over again through our eating disorders. We knew we had to be rid of the defects of character that fueled these behaviors, but were not yet sure how to go about it. Yeah, I have marked here from another time that I read it. Oh, fed up with our old patterns of thinking that kept us in a state of emotional turmoil. I certainly am fed up with my old patterns, but I also realize that, I mean, those are, I think of them as kind of deep grooves that I've made over the years, and I'm grateful for EDA for helping me create new grooves and new habits. And so I'm trying to just accept those old patterns as that's what I had then and working on new ones now. So this workshop's really helped make those new grooves. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Judy. Melissa, would you please read on page 169, the very last paragraph, which begins, "The first thing we needed"?
Sure, thanks. My name's Melissa, and I am a grateful, recovered person in EDA, and I live in Mission Viejo, California. The first thing we need to do was to recognize that our natural desire for safety, security, validation, and connection to others sometimes led us to take actions that, in retrospect, completely undermined the very objective we sought. To find validation, we may have been boastful or manipulative, yet we can think of no example where self-aggrandizement or manipulation obtained the desired result without an even more undesirable effect on our character. To find security, we may have greedily taken credit for things not our due, stolen actual money or property, or lustfully engaged in sordid affairs, heedless of the truth that doing so left us far more insecure and untrustworthy than ever. To establish what felt like safety, we may have angrily demanded that everyone honor boundaries that had little to do with the basic respect with which all should be treated, only to find little lasting peace or freedom through distancing, even alienating friends and family. Angry with ourselves as well as others, we steadfastly refused to allow ourselves to consider changes that would have enabled us to recover far sooner. I have a lot of this paragraph highlighted. And I think it's comforting to read how the pendulum swings from one side to the other. Once we start seeing some of our tendencies, we see how kind of extreme we can be trying to get what we want. And I am grateful that the desire is to be on the middle road and to get my basic human needs met that are emotional in nature without, I just don't want to harm my relationships in doing so. So, you know, this is where the rubber hits the road in the sixth step. And this is where the growth begins on the insides, the emotions. And I'm grateful to be a part of a program where other people are right along the path with me, and we can all share our struggles, perhaps even our ideas and victories over things that are difficult for us. Thanks, I pass.
Thank you, Melissa. Manuela, would you please read on page 170, the last paragraph, which begins, "As we struggled"?
Okay, thank you. My name is Manuela, and I'm recovering from eating disorders. As we struggle to form ideals we hope to attain, we may have found ourselves enviously comparing our qualities, attainments, and possessions unfavorably with those of others, dimly aware that such thinking leads nowhere healthy. Most of us spend years paralyzed by fear of change, somewhat lazily repeating old patterns because they were easier than seriously contemplating alternatives and making changes. We may have dismissed ideas about what we could do to effect real changes in our lives because they just seemed too hard. Sometimes we didn't take action because we felt deeply inferior to those around us, as if the process that worked for others would somehow not work for us. We felt as if we were broken in a completely novel and unfixable way. Conversely, we may have looked askance at the recovery of others, dismissive of helpful ideas because we felt ourselves a little or perhaps a lot superior to those who would have offered us a hand or a shoulder. I guess what I'll say is that that paragraph is basically perfect for what I'm going through right now. Like I was thinking, I kind of have a pretty good idea of what my patterns are, but I just don't know how to fix it. And it really is true that sometimes being stuck in our ways is much easier than doing something different, you know? So it's exactly what I needed to read today. Thank you, I'll pass.
Thank you, Manuela. The process of writing a fourth step and sharing it in a step 5 results in our becoming acutely aware of mistakes in our thinking and behaving, which some call shortcomings and others refer to as character defects. In this workshop, we use these terms interchangeably. Last week's homework asked that you make a list of your shortcomings. Your list of shortcomings may look something like the list on our next slide. Oh, actually, Melissa, please read the next 2 slides for us.
Taking a closer look at what we want to give up. Selfishness is the first one, thinking of my own needs and wants while minimizing others' needs and wants. Being upset that others are not doing what I want or doing things my way. The second one is self-seeking, which is saying or doing things to try to get what I want, manipulating, forcing, controlling. Third one is dishonesty, lying to myself or others for my own benefit. The fourth is lust, uncontrolled sexual desire, and also greed for recognition, accolades, fame, or fortune. And the last one is pride, excessive sense of my own importance or correctness relative to others, arrogance that separates and divides us from our fellows. Pride can also manifest as judgment and unacceptance of others' perspectives. Okay, all or nothing thinking and rigidity. It's related to perfectionism, also known as black and white thinking. Gossip, idle talk, or sharing rumors about the personal or private affairs of others, often in a negative context. Procrastination, putting off or delaying something that requires prompt action. And fear, concern that I am not going to get what I want, or I am going to lose something that I have, often causing me to react with selfish protectiveness.
Thank you, Melissa. If you have found or find other traits you want to let go of, add them to your list. We are grateful to an EDA member who shared with us her reasons for wanting her character defects removed, and I have asked Sandra to read this from the next 2 slides.
One member's reasons for wanting her character defects removed. Selfishness. When I am overly focused on getting my way, I lose my connection with my higher power and others. I lose the perspective needed in order to stay away from my eating disordered behaviors, which makes me less able to be of service. Self-seeking. I hurt others by efforts to manipulate and control them. People stop liking me. Dishonesty. I lose my own self-respect. I become anxious about the consequences of being found out. Fear prevents me from enjoying my life, keeps me focused on myself, makes my life miserable. Procrastination holds me back from accomplishing my life goals and from being useful. Lust hurts me and others, distracts me from my real issues, which need my attention. Pride creates barriers between myself and others and my higher power, higher purpose. All or nothing thinking and rigidity limits my life and freedom, prevents me from being effective and useful. Gossip violates relationships of trust, hurts my integrity and dignity, and hurts others.
Thank you, Sandra. The strong feelings which often underlie the problematic character defects we have been discussing need not be seen as always negative. Emotions in balance are useful and necessary. All emotions in excess are problematic. However, all emotions in balance are useful and necessary and can be put to good purpose. EDA suggests we list our defects and next to them write an asset that is contained in or underlies that defect, which can be used to good purpose. I have asked Sandra to read the next 2 slides, which illustrate this. Please read slowly to give us time to process these ideas, which many of us may be considering for the very first time. Beginning with column 1, the defect or trait.
Fear.
Column 2, the asset contained in the defect or trait,
Caution.
and how that might be put to good purpose.
Prevents unsafe risk-taking. Promotes self-care, self-protection, protection of others.
Trait,
Anger.
asset,
A healthy response to injustice.
good purpose,
Provides energy to work for change.
trait,
Being controlling.
asset,
Having vision and having or wanting leadership skills. Taking responsibility.
good purpose,
Caring that things are done well. Ensures the most important things get attention. Opportunity to build up others and accomplish useful goals.
trait,
Selfishness.
asset,
Evidence of my willingness to prioritize meeting my own needs, such as empathy for self.
good purpose,
When I take care of my own basic needs, I am more able to be useful to others and can let go of childish dependence on others.
trait,
Gossip.
asset,
Desire for deeper connection with others. Confidence in my values.
good purpose,
Work on having good relationships, which include intimacy and connection.
trait,
Jealousy.
asset,
Wanting good things for oneself or others.
good purpose,
Work on improving relationships. And address issues that could improve self-esteem. Willingness to respect and appreciate what we have. Inspiration to set goals.
trait or defect,
Stubbornness.
asset contained in the trait or defect,
Persistence and determination. Willingness to reject what is wrong.
good purpose,
Helps me prioritize tasks that lead to achieving long-term goals. Enables me to empathize with people who are rigid.
trait,
Procrastination.
asset,
Ability to make choices that prioritize calm and deliberate action when the time is right. Valuing recreation.
good purpose,
Conservation of energy. Pacing myself. Not being hasty or rushing to respond instantly to every demand. Enjoyment of the here and now, rather than wasting anxious attention on something that may not matter.
trait,
Perfectionism.
asset,
Ability to discern excellence and a desire to pursue it.
good purpose,
Doing good work. Making sure important details
get needed attention.
Trait,
Shame for reasons outside my control.
asset,
Sensitivity, allowing for recognition of harms caused to others.
good purpose,
Standing up for what is right. Working for societal change to right wrongs.
trait,
Despair,
asset,
impetus to make deep changes in thinking and values. Humility,
good purpose,
acceptance of what is. Willingness to think and do something different. When I despair about not being able to change others, I stop trying to do so.
Thank you so much, Sandra. The summary of step 6. After taking steps 4 and 5, we are now very aware of our character defects and are becoming willing to have them removed or reduced. We want to be free to be our best selves and of maximum usefulness. Many of us struggle to let go of some of our old ideas, despite our understanding of their painful consequences. We want to move forward with humor and gentleness, knowing that change will come over time with persistent commitment. We are realizing that we don't want to have any emotion at the level that causes us to lose our peace and serenity. For example, anger, if allowed to remain intense as resentment or rage, can cause us to become unbalanced and sick. Prolonged, intense anger can prevent us from seeing the big picture, being able to listen, and can also prevent us from being maximally effective. We need to calm ourselves to be effective, healthy, and balanced. In recovery, we move from intense emotions to healthy balance through the process of inventory. This includes finding resolutions that make us useful to ourselves and others. But what happens when we try to fix ourselves? We know from experience that these efforts don't usually work. EDA offers a solution to this dilemma in step 7, which we will cover next week. Now on to our homework. Number 1, write about the reasons you do or do not want to be free of your character defects. 2, continue to implement your 10th and 11th step practices, remembering to focus on the things done right. 3, call at least one EDA member to share some of the above. 4, list 3 to 5 of your defects, and next to each one, write an asset contained in or underlying that defect or trait, which can be used to good purpose. You can reference the above chart. Number 4 is not an easy assignment, but just give it a try. To wrap up, I'm going to read the last paragraph on page 511 from the EDA Big Book. The 12-step approach provides a way to live a wonderfully useful life. I trust that as long as I work my program completely and without reservation, there is no need to engage in any of my defects of character. When I do engage in them, my daily practice of step 10 helps me set right the wrongs. As a result, they gradually become smaller and fewer, at least until something new comes up that reminds me how very, very human I am. When this happens, I am grateful to know that right feelings will eventually follow right action. I am grateful that I have the opportunity to choose to think and then act differently in each situation that formerly caused pain and suffering. Step 6 lets me move ahead with remedial action while eliminating unnecessary and harmful hand-wringing and self-judgment. I will now return the workshop to Regina.
This is the part of the workshop where we really want to encourage milestones, sharing, and questions. I'd like to clarify something from the chart. The last chart with the defect, the asset contained in the defect, and the good purpose. The column 2, asset contained in the defect, is not the opposite of the defect. It's kind of like a nut. You know, the defect is the shell, and you open it and there's something good in there. I hope that doesn't make it more confusing. It does become clear eventually. And Leah, did you want to maybe give us an example?
Thank you, Regina. I was just saying that sometimes it actually can be easier. I work with parents a lot, and sometimes it can actually be easier to identify this in your children. People want to go, oh, my kid is just so stubborn. And my response tends to be like, oh, he has a lot of determination. So it's just sort of a perspective shift.
Thank you very much, Leah. That was great. So the chat is open for questions only for myself. For those of you shy to speak, which is fine and understandable. A couple questions have come in that I'll address. And in the meantime, please raise your hands for milestones, sharing, questions. So one question is about the term hand-wringing. The question is, I see the term hand-wringing a lot. What does that mean? I'm demonstrating hand-wringing. That is like worrying, but not taking any action. Oh my, it's so bad, but not taking any action at all. That's hand-wringing. It's kind of like an unproductive worrying, devoid from positive action. And then another question I thought was interesting. How do you know if your emotions are in excess? Or since all emotions in excess are problematic. And so these are examples many of you will recognize. For example, nobody wants to be angry enough to kill, or lustful enough to rape, or fearful enough not to leave the house. So these are extreme examples, but I hope it gives the gist of what excess is. And here in EDA, we do want, emotions are feelings. We want to acknowledge our feelings and put them to good purpose. And steps 6 and 7 are all about that. All right. So I think there's no more questions in the chat. Scarlett, you can be first.
Thank you. I actually have 3 questions, if that's okay.
Okay, go.
So the first one is about step 5. I haven't done my step 5 yet, but my question is, I know it's suggested not to share your inventories with like a spouse or a family member. But what if you don't have a sponsor or a therapist or someone else, but you have like your spouse, someone who has the ability to be honest with you and be unbiased, and someone that you really trust and are comfortable to share your inventories with? Should you still not do that? Why is it suggested basically to not include like a spouse or family with it, especially if that's like all you have?
Okay, so we'll do it one at a time. Okay, so why is it suggested? I don't know. I didn't make the suggestion. I can think of many reasons. It's a lot. It's a lot to put on a family member who is not as objective and detached and might feel guilty or responsible or want to fix you. Has it been done? I'm absolutely positive people have given their 4th steps to family members. I'm sure it's been done. I'm sure there's times when it's worked out great, but it's not suggested. And I would maybe, an option is to wait and hang in, and people do get sponsors eventually. Question number 2. And sometimes you can find someone in EDA to hear your 5th step,
Okay.
even if they're not your sponsor. It's not as ideal, but I know that that's going on, and in the workshop, and maybe if you've had that experience, you can share about it. Go ahead, Scarlett. Number 2.
Okay, number two is so emotions in excess are problematic. I think in the chart, we focused a lot on like emotions that we perceive as negative and how they can be positive. But I was wondering if maybe you could give an example of how a good emotion in excess, like extreme happiness, could be something that's problematic.
Well, I would have to think about that. Extreme happiness. Well, if it runs into like a manic condition of happiness where I can't stop jumping up and down and calling everyone and telling them how great everything is. So I don't have a lot on that, Scarlett. I wouldn't mind some extreme happiness coming my way, but I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer.
It was
Then
something I thought of when we did the breakout groups was,
Okay.
it says all emotions.
Mhm.
And I'm sure even good emotions can be a problem.
Yes. Yes.
And then my third question, the homework. So if we're still on step 4 and we haven't moved to step 5, can we continue to do the homework for the other steps, or should we not move on with the homework until we have completed?
Well, you can do whatever you want, but I would say if you're feeling like you got to, I wouldn't make any amends. I would give a big caution. I wouldn't do step 9 early. But the 6 and 7 homework is, in my opinion, would be safe. Because it's just yeah. Okay, 3 great questions, and I'm gonna have to give some thought about that. Good emotions in excess. There you go.
Hi, my name is Tracy, and for a milestone for me, I was just want to say how much this workshop is benefiting for me. And then when we broke in small groups, that was so beneficial. We exchanged numbers and forth, and so I just want to comment of how absolutely, how this is benefiting me and keeping me in recovery. So thank you all for all the hard work you guys do. My name is Tracy, and I pass.
Thanks, Tracy. Claire.
Yes, hi, I'm Claire, and I'm in recovery from an eating disorder. I just wanted to share a milestone. My milestone is being here today. And my other milestone is, like yesterday, I went hiking with a neighbor, and it was a little bit too much. And, everything I had planned went, was down the drain. And I was really upset, but the milestone is, I stay put. I could have went again, not take care of myself and go do those things anyway, because I really wanted to, but I actually stayed put and, did something else that's less energy demanding. And, also, I also wanted to share, I experience this often, not all the time, but an example for me for excess of good emotion is like when I do a lot of panels and a lot of service work in the other program, and afterwards, like I feel this high, and but I have to be careful, like, because a lot of times when I'm feeling like that, I'm ungrounded and I make poor decisions. I drive the wrong way, I get lost. I might even say yes to a lot of other things, like dropping people off, and in the end, I realize that I'm spent, like I'm spread too thin. And so, yeah, that is an example of too much of a good thing for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, and congratulations on your milestones. And it's important when we go to meetings, when they ask for people to share milestones, to try to give one. And Claire has modeled for us that it's as easy as I'm at the meeting. So everybody always has a milestone who's at a meeting. No excuses for not having a milestone. There's a comment about, sharing who to share your 4th step with. it says it would be wise to have someone well-versed in what the columns are and the spiritual meaning of working the steps. Families just don't have that capacity to hear it since they are so tied in emotionally to us. Right, family members are not necessarily going to help you see patterns. And, you know, like a lot of times in my fourth step, I had to leave certain squares blank because I couldn't see my part, or I couldn't see a resolution, and family members aren't as skillful at or haven't had the training often in that. Okay, Judy, there you go.
Hi, my name is Judy. I desire to recover from an eating disorder on the west coast of the US. So I thought, oh, I better say a milestone after saying we should say a milestone. So I'll say a milestone. I took down the contact information of the people who were in the breakout room, and I sent a little note saying, hi, it's Judy from the breakout room. And maybe we won't be best friends forever for the rest of our lives, but I feel like that the breakout room helped to make connections. And so now I have more people to connect with. And maybe we will be best friends forever. But I had a question.
Well, first I want to say congratulations on your milestone.
Thank you. So working, let's say step 5, and you're talking with someone and the person says, oh, you need to look at that more deeply. What does it mean to look more deeply in step 4 or 5?
Well, if I would say that to someone, I might mean that I think there's more information to be mined by being more thoughtful and seeing what's under that feeling and under that feeling. I don't know.
How do you do that? How do you how do you look? How do you let go of that little protective layer that's covering it up?
It's not easy or necessary that you can just do it on the spot. But I think in time, it just, you know, for me, breathing, waiting, praying, and I like to cheat and I ask others, what do you think? So it is something that I will occasionally say to people who I feel permission to give a little poke. And oftentimes they will come back in a week and say, oh my gosh, I realized X, Y, Z.
Okay. Thank you, Regina.
Yeah. Erin.
Hi, everybody. Erin in recovery from an eating disorder from Florida, where it's a brisk 60 degrees. So I have to check a little bit. I guess I just want to say my milestone right now is just being on this meeting. It's great to be here. And I want to just put a plug in for, you know, outreach calls or phone calls, because it was another member who called me and just said, hey, I haven't seen you the last couple of weeks. And I was like, you know what, you're right. I need to put a little more effort into making sure that I am present and a part of this group. I'm grateful for this workshop. I was able to participate in the previous workshop. It's amazing to me. And, you know, I love the 10th step that we're doing. I do it daily and I send it to my sponsor, and it's, I know, you know, she gives me feedback when she has time, but a lot of it is just my ability to reflect while I'm writing and see so much of my part. Oh my gosh, so much selfishness and self-pity that's out there. And it helps me develop, you know, like it was shared, you know, previously somebody else talked about with just like habits dealing with children, you know, small little things that we can do can shift our course. And that's just like the motto of EDA for me. The small little actions that I can take shifts my sail just enough that I know that someday on this journey, I will end up at a different island, and that island will not be my eating disorder. And it's by coming to these rooms and hearing other people share that I have that hope and faith. And I'm very, very grateful. Oh my God, the faces, you know, just the work that's put into these workshops and this program, so much gratitude. So I don't know, I just service, gratitude, and milestones, man. That's what this is all about, day by day. So thank you all for letting me share. Thank you.
Erin, wonderful to see you, and thank you for your share. Melissa.
Hi there. Thank you. And thank you, Aaron. Really got a lot out of just how we change, how we gradually change. We don't change all at once just because we've done a fifth step. And I just want to encourage everybody here to be extraordinarily full of compassion and graciousness toward yourself, that you already did the hard work of a fifth step. And now you have some of the goods of some of you. It might not even be clear right away, but you have some raw materials to work with on a sixth step going, these are my trouble spots. This is what I tend to do. And I have done it since I was probably 4 years old. So this is not going to change overnight, but with subtle input and prayer, hello, I really think that my higher power is a big part of my step 6 and 7, because I don't do all the changing on my own. I make myself sort of like ready, almost like how you would till a garden and plant seeds of stuff I want to grow, but I don't make it grow overnight and have a glorious garden. But step 6 and 7 is about designing a new garden and being willing to be patient for how long it takes for that to grow while I watch for the weeds. And how do I watch for the weeds? 10 steps. 10 steps, I do those, and going to meetings and sharing what's not going well and what is going well. I always try to encourage everybody, if you're going to share at meetings or sponsees I work with, and they're so afraid they're going to be a downer, I said, no fear for that. Share what's really going on, and also share a positive of what you're going to do today that might be a little bit out of your comfort zone. That's wonderful. Now it's an uplifting, balanced share. So I guess step 6 is sort of an underrated step. We don't hear a lot about people talking about it in meetings, but it is where the deep character growth comes from. And I also want to say, why else would we be sometimes going to church for a long time or counseling for a long time? We don't grow overnight because I went to church once, and I don't get in shape because I went to the gym once. Just like I do a fifth step, I don't change because I've done one fifth step. It's a slow build. So pack a lot of water for the journey, and I'll see you guys on the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Okay. All right, Eileen.
Hi, everybody. My name's Eileen. I suffer from an eating disorder, and I guess I will say right off, my milestone is that I'm here, and that I too really love this workshop because it somehow is keeping me from sliding right off the edge and going back to my old behaviors. I always have a hard time when I have the tools, but I don't use them. I heard somebody last week talking about, going into the store and having that conversation with yourself where you're having a tantrum. I want this, I want it right now, and I'm going to have it. And what do you do with that? Or the plan to eat. And I've done that. That's where I have, whether it's shame or it's guilt or whatever it is, it's like a plan that I'm going to go and do this. And I can't, it's almost like I will say the word, I can't stop that, because there's an obsession. First, there's the obsession, and then the compulsion to do it. And I just want it. I want it, and I want it, and I go and do it. And then, of course, afterwards, I'm left with that feeling of, what do I do? I feel okay, I'm fine, and I just start again. But
yeah,
that is like, not using my sponsor, not doing what I'm supposed to do, even though I'm well aware of what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I still do it. So I'm going to put that out there.
So may I make a little suggestion, Eileen?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're not bad. You're not anything negative. But what you could probably add to the I want to eat is being honest about the pros and cons, a little more rigorous about why you might want to go ahead and eat, and why you might want to call your sponsor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Judy, go a little deeper, or whoever it was, go a little deeper, worth a try. Thank you so much for your honest share today. So Donna's going to close us out, and then we'll have an after meeting if people want to stay. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, Regina. Volunteers are selected prior to the start of each workshop. Next week, please consider joining us 10 to 15 minutes early to volunteer. to be a reader. An anonymity reminder, please do not share who you've seen here or what others have shared here. Our seventh tradition, we have no dues or fees for this workshop. And this workshop is, EDA has no dues or fees, and this workshop is offered at no cost. However, EDA has expenses and donations are welcome. We hope you will consider a minimum donation of $14 for this 14-week workshop. To donate, go to the EDA website and select the support tab. For those who will, if you wish to, please join me in saying the we version of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed today's workshop. More information about Eating Disorders Anonymous can be found at 4eda.org, number 4eda.org. The handouts for this workshop can be found at edahopeforrecovery.com. We encourage you to check out one or more of the many EDA Zoom or in-person meetings. Many of us have found recovery from our eating disorders in these meetings and hope that you will too. Until next time.